Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the world of innovation today, exploring this fascinating book by R. Gopalakrishnan called A Biography of Innovations.
Yeah, it's a really interesting approach he takes, comparing the journey of an innovation to an actual human life.
I know, right? Like, innovations have their own birth, growth, maturity, even decline. It makes you realize that even something as seemingly abstract as an idea can have a whole life cycle.
Exactly. And what I love is how Gopalakrishnan brings in examples from such a diverse range of fields.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't just stick to, Silicon Valley and tech startups.
Right. He talks about everything from sanitation to hotels to agriculture. It really broadens your perspective on what innovation can be.
It definitely challenges the stereotype that innovation is all about, the latest gadget or app.
For sure. And there are some real gems in terms of insights, too. Like, one thing that really stuck with me is his discussion about the role of setbacks.
Oh, yeah. How even pain and failure can actually fuel creativity.
Yeah, exactly. And he also highlights the importance of storytelling, not just cold, hard data when you're trying to get people excited about an innovation.
It's about making that emotional connection, right?
Totally. And, one thing that really blew my mind was Bill Gross's research, which he cites in the book, showing that the timing of an innovation can be even more important than the idea itself.
Wow. Think about that for a second. You could have the most brilliant idea in the world, but if the market isn't ready for it, if the timing's off, it might just flop.
It happens all the time, unfortunately.
So speaking of timing, let's go all the way back to the beginning, the very spark of innovation. Where do these groundbreaking ideas actually come from? What does Gopalakrishnan say about that?
Well, he takes us on this fascinating journey, way back to our evolutionary roots. And believe it or not, he connects the development of innovation to something you and I are doing right now. Walking upright.
Wait a minute, hold on. Walking on two legs is connected to innovation. I'm intrigued, but I don't quite see the link.
Okay, so think about it this way. When our ancestors started walking upright, it freed up their hands. And it also changed the structure of their pelvis. And that, believe it or not, affected blood flow to the brain.
Okay, so more blood to the brain. That's good for thinking, right?
Exactly. It eventually led to, bigger brains.
Makes sense. More brain power. But I'm guessing it's not just about raw processing power.
You got it. It's the development of the frontal cortex, the part of our brain responsible for all that complex thought, planning, all those things that really set humans apart.
Ah, so our big, powerful frontal cortex is what allows us to come up with all these crazy, innovative ideas.
Exactly. And within that complex brain, Gopalakrishnan points out that there are two key networks at play when it comes to innovation: the executive network and the creative network.
Two networks. Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So the executive network is all about, focus, goal-oriented thinking, like a CEO, making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently.
Okay, I can see that. And what about the creative network?
That one's more free-flowing. Associative thinking, making connections between seemingly unrelated things, like the brainstorming team coming up with all sorts of wild ideas.
Ah, so it's like having a CEO and a creative director working together in your head.
Perfect analogy. And the magic happens, the aha moments when those two networks kind of intersect.
So it's not just about logic or pure creativity. It's about finding that sweet spot where those two forces come together.
Precisely. And it really debunks that myth of the lone genius struck by a bolt of inspiration out of nowhere.
Right. It's not just random chance.
No, our brains are constantly working, making connections, firing off neurons. But an innovative idea, a truly groundbreaking one, it emerges when those signals align in a meaningful way. And often that happens through, a combination of focus and open-mindedness.
So it's about creating the right conditions for those sparks of insight to emerge.
Exactly. But let's say we have that initial spark, a concept brewing. How do we take it from a flicker to a full-fledged idea, something we can actually work with?
Yeah, that's the key question, right?
Gopalakrishnan outlines 4 key ingredients: serendipity, mindset, associative thinking, and articulation.
Ooh, I love the word serendipity. Always makes me think of happy accidents. What's the story behind that word anyway?
Oh, it's from this delightful Persian tale about the 3 princes of Serendip, who were always stumbling upon these fortunate discoveries purely by chance.
So it's all about embracing those unexpected encounters.
Exactly. Being open to the possibility that a brilliant idea might pop up when you least expect it.
So how do we invite more serendipity into our lives? Do we just wander around hoping to bump into our next big idea?
A little bit of wandering never hurts. But Gopalakrishnan talks about cultivating a mindset that makes us more receptive to those serendipitous moments. He uses the Jesuits as an example. They practice silence and meditation to clear their minds.
To quiet the noise and create space for new ideas to emerge.
Exactly. To overcome biases and see the world with fresh eyes. And that open-mindedness, it goes hand in hand with the next ingredient, associative thinking.
Associative thinking. So that's about what? Making connections between seemingly unrelated things.
Exactly. Like, have you ever been stuck on a problem and then the solution just pops into your head when you're doing something completely different, like taking a shower or walking the dog?
Oh, all the time. It's like my best ideas come when I'm not even trying.
That's associative thinking at work. Your brain's making those connections in the background, even when you're not consciously focused on the problem. Gopalakrishnan gives this amazing example about how India developed its own supercomputers.
Oh, right, because they couldn't get the technology from the US at the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. They faced this huge obstacle. But instead of giving up, they found a way to innovate, to connect different areas of expertise and think outside the box. That's how the Param supercomputers were born.
Wow, what a story. It's a reminder that sometimes limitations can actually breed creativity.
Absolutely. And once you have that idea, that innovative spark, the final ingredient, Gopalakrishnan says, is articulation. Being able to communicate your idea clearly.
Makes sense. You can have the most brilliant idea in the world, but if you can't explain it to anyone, it's not going to go very far.
Exactly. Think about it. How would you explain something complex like democracy to someone who's never even encountered the concept before? You'd have to break it down, use analogies, find a way to make it relatable. Articulation is about giving your idea a voice, a form that others can grasp.
It's like giving birth to an idea.
You got it.
But what happens after an idea is born? How do we nurture it and help it grow? That's where the next stage of the innovation life cycle comes in, right?
You're exactly right. Giving birth to the idea is just the very beginning. There's a whole lot more to it. It's like, raising a child. You got to nurture that innovation and help it navigate all the challenges it's going to face out there in the market. Gopalakrishnan compares this stage to like childhood and adolescence, a time of, rapid growth, setbacks, adaptation, all that good stuff.
So like, what are some of the hurdles we might encounter when we're raising a baby innovation, so to speak? What does Gopalakrishnan say about that?
Well, just like with a human baby, there's a lot of trial and error in those early stages. It's about learning by doing, taking risks, and not being afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Embracing those stumbles along the way. He actually shares a really inspiring story in this section of the book about Kamal Shah, the founder of Nephroplus.
Oh yes, Nephroplus. That's India's largest dialysis center chain, right?
That's the one.
I remember reading that Shah was actually inspired to start the company after his own experience with kidney failure.
Yep, that's right. It's amazing how he took something so challenging, so personal, and turned it into a force for good.
It really is. So what are some of the insights we can glean from his story, from his journey as an innovator?
Well, one of the first things Shah did was connect with other dialysis patients online. He was sharing his experiences, listening to theirs, and he quickly realized that there was this huge need for better dialysis care. More patient-centric, more accessible. He saw a gap in the market, a real problem that needed solving, and he just went for it.
It's such a great example of, turning adversity into opportunity. Seeing a problem not as a roadblock, but as a chance to create something new and valuable.
Exactly. And his story, I think, really embodies the power of, turning setbacks into fuel for innovation. He was willing to take risks, to learn from his mistakes, and to adapt his approach along the way. All those things are so crucial, especially in the early stages of an innovation, when you're still figuring things out.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most innovative ideas come from our own personal struggles, our own experiences of, facing and overcoming challenges.
For sure. And as the innovation moves into, let's say, its adolescence, the challenges kind of evolve too.
Oh, how so?
Well, this is the stage where you're, refining your prototype, facing opposition from those who might doubt your vision, and figuring out how to tell a compelling story that gets people on board.
I imagine there are some cautionary tales from this phase too, right? Innovations that maybe didn't quite make it through those awkward teenage years.
Oh, definitely. Gopalakrishnan talks about Persil Power Detergent, which ironically failed because it was too powerful.
Wait, too powerful? How is that even possible?
Well, it turned out that, there was a certain chemical reaction that caused the detergent to actually damage clothes over time.
Yeah.
Something that wasn't initially apparent in testing.
So thorough testing is key. You got to make sure your innovation actually works as intended in the real world. But I'm also struck by something else, the importance of speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm guessing someone on the team probably noticed the issue during testing, but maybe didn't feel empowered to raise a red flag.
That's a really important point. And it applies to so many fields, not just product development, Creating a culture where feedback is welcome, even if it's negative, that's crucial for any organization that wants to innovate. You have to be willing to listen to those dissenting voices, even if they challenge your assumptions.
It's about creating that psychological safety, that space where people feel comfortable pointing out potential problems without fear of, being shut down or punished.
Exactly. Okay, so we've navigated infancy and adolescence. What comes next for our growing innovation?
It's time to launch, right? To finally send our innovation out into the world.
You got it. It's time for young adulthood, which means entering the market, building a team, establishing processes, and really starting to scale things up. Gopalakrishnan actually contrasts two very different approaches to this stage. The McDonald's model versus what he calls ego-driven leadership.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. Tell me more about what we can learn from McDonald's approach to innovation. What's their secret sauce, so to speak?
Well, think about it. No matter where you are in the world, you can walk into a McDonald's and have a pretty consistent experience. Their success is really rooted in discipline and repeatability. Right. They have process manuals for everything.
Wow, really? Everything?
Yeah, from how to cook a perfect burger to how to clean the restrooms.
It's a good reminder that innovation isn't always about, flashy technology or groundbreaking discoveries. Sometimes it's about perfecting the basics, creating systems that ensure consistent quality and customer satisfaction.
Exactly. And you contrast that with the pitfalls of ego-driven leadership, which is, that classic tale of the brilliant innovator who lets their ego get in the way of success. They fail to build a strong team, they micromanage everything, and they often ignore feedback from others.
It's like they're stuck in the me phase of innovation, unable to embrace the collaborative we phase that's so crucial for sustainable growth.
Exactly. They haven't learned that innovation thrives on open communication, delegation, and, the ability to leverage the strengths of a diverse team. No one person have all the answers.
So we've guided our innovation through infancy, adolescence, and young adulthood. What's next on this journey? What happens when an innovation reaches, let's say, middle age?
Well, that's when things get really interesting. It's time for our innovation to enter maturity, a stage where it faces the challenge of staying relevant in a constantly changing world.
Right, because the world doesn't stand still. Tastes change, technology advances, new competitors emerge.
Exactly. It's not enough to just rest on your laurels. You got to keep evolving. Gopalakrishnan uses the example of Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas. How does that fit in?
Well, think about how Las Vegas transformed itself from this dusty desert stopover to a global entertainment mecca.
That's a great example. It shows that even mature industries, even places, can reinvent themselves, adapt to changing tastes, and find new ways to thrive.
And that's a key lesson for any innovator, right? Another example he uses is sanitation, which is something we often take for granted, but it's actually a field that's ripe for innovation.
Sanitation? Really?
Oh yeah. From developing low-cost toilets for developing countries to using drones to monitor open defecation, there's so much happening in that space.
Wow, I never thought of sanitation as a hotbed for innovation. But it makes sense. There's always room for improvement for finding better, more sustainable solutions to age-old problems.
Precisely. So we've seen how an innovation is born, nurtured, brought to market. But the story doesn't end there. There's a whole other chapter dedicated to what it means for an innovation to age gracefully.
Aging gracefully, huh? It's funny to think of an innovation reaching old age. I mean, we usually associate innovation with, rapid change, disruption, all that stuff. But I guess there's a whole other side to the story when we take a longer view. What happens when an innovation reaches that mature stage? Does it just fade away?
That's what a lot of people think, yeah.
Yeah.
But Gopalakrishnan, he challenges that notion. He points out that there's often a pretty big lag between when something's invented and when it actually becomes widely adopted.
Really? How long are we talking?
Sometimes decades,
yeah.
Sometimes even centuries.
Yeah.
It can take a really long time for an innovation to truly become part of everyday life.
Centuries? No way. Okay, give me some examples. I got to hear this.
Okay, so get this. The electric iron, it took 54 years to become a mainstream household item. Sliced bread, 16 years. And ready for this? The flush toilet, something we consider absolutely essential today, it took 70 years to gain widespread acceptance.
70 years for the flush toilet. Wow. I never really thought about it that way. I guess we kind of take for granted how long it takes for new ideas to really take root.
Right. It's a good reminder that, innovation isn't always this straight line from like idea to impact. It's a process that unfolds over time, often with a lot of unexpected twists and turns along the way.
Makes sense. So are you saying sometimes the application of an idea actually comes before we even fully understand the science behind it?
Exactly. Gopalakrishnan gives the example of the Chola bronzes, these incredible metal sculptures from ancient India. The techniques they used to create them were way ahead of their time, centuries ahead of when metallurgy became like a formal science.
So they were innovating without even fully understanding how it worked? That's wild.
That's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you wonder, what innovations are we using today that we don't completely understand yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. It makes you think. So speaking of adapting and evolving, Gopalakrishnan also talks about the rise of the wellness market as an example of innovation in action. It's something that used to be considered pretty niche, but now it's practically mainstream. What can we learn from that shift?
It shows us that innovation isn't always about creating something completely new.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about recognizing a shift in like society's needs and values and adapting to meet those changing demands.
Right. Like think about how many big food companies are now adding healthier options to their product lines. It's like they're playing catch up to a customer base that's become way more health conscious.
Exactly. They're realizing that innovation is about understanding people and anticipating their needs.
It's not just about the technology or the product itself. It's about meeting a need, solving a problem, making someone's life better.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think this has been a really eye-opening journey through the life cycle of innovation. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any final takeaways from Gopalakrishnan's book?
I think one of the biggest things I took away from it is just how human the whole process is. It's driven by curiosity, by persistence, and a willingness to embrace risk. Gopalakrishnan shares some great stories of innovators who maybe aren't household names, but who are doing some amazing things.
I love that he highlights those lesser known stories. It's a reminder that anyone can be an innovator.
Absolutely. It's not just about the big tech giants. It's about the everyday people who are out there, pushing boundaries and making a difference.
So to wrap things up, what are some of the key lessons we can learn from these innovators, from their journeys?
Embrace risk, especially when you have, nothing to lose. Never stop learning. Surround yourself with people who will challenge and support you. And don't let your ego get in the way.
All great advice.
And Gopalakrishnan, he leaves us with a really thought-provoking question. He asks, how do we measure the true impact of an innovation? Is it just about financial success, or is it about something more?
That's a really good question. It challenges us to think beyond the bottom line, to consider the bigger picture, the ripple effects of our work and ideas.
The most impactful innovations, they often connect people, ideas, and resources in unexpected ways. They create new possibilities, new opportunities for growth and progress.
So to our listeners out there, what connections will you make today? What challenges are you curious about? What problems are you passionate about solving?
Remember, innovation is a journey. Keep exploring, keep experimenting, and never stop asking questions. You never know what you might discover.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the fascinating world of innovation. Thanks for joining us.